Are we good to go, Janice?
We are recording, Mayor.
Very good. Good evening. Welcome to the October 7th, 2024 Township Committee meeting held at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 770 Coopertown Road in Delanco. We have a roll call, please, Janice.
Mrs. Patrick.
Here.
Mr. Alette.
Here.
Ms. Seuss.
Here.
Mr. Templeton.
Here.
Mr. Bartlett.
Here. Also present, Mr. Fox, our Township Engineer, Mr. Heinhold, our Solicitor, Mrs. Lohr, our Municipal Clerk, Mrs. Russell, our Deputy Municipal Clerk, Mr. Fenimore, our Superintendent of Public Works, and Lieutenant Warren from the Police Department. Can you please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the sunshine statement, please, Janice.
Please be advised that proper notice of this meeting has been given in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act in the following manner. Written notice has been mailed to the Burlington County Times and Courier Post and published in the January 4th, 2024 editions. And written notice has been posted on the official bulletin board of the Township of Delanco at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. This meeting of the Delanco Township Committee may be transmitted via live stream on YouTube video. The streaming of the meeting is not intended to be relied upon as formal public access under the Open Public Meetings Act, and if the technology is disrupted for any reason, the township meeting will proceed in person as an official meeting in accord with the official notice.
Thank you, Janice. Before we start, as you can see, we have some remodeling going in here. We had hoped it would be done by now, but we're finally getting the sound panels in here. So once these are installed, the echo and all the sound issues in this room will be so much better. But as you can see, we told them to clean it up. We have company coming, so they got the room back in order for tonight's meeting and before the next meeting. God willing, this will be finished. So with that, we will open up the meeting for any public comment and questions. This is session number 1. There'll be another one later in the meeting. If you have any comments or questions, please approach the podium, give your name and address for the record. Meeting is now open to the public. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Robinson, 32nd County Court. I'll try to be brief. I have a couple questions and a comment, and I'd like to address the issue of the redevelopment approval made at 401 Creek Road. Our property backs up to that development. We're in a line of sight. We'll be in a line of sight of the trailers, the repair building, the retention basins are right in our back. Proposal is to put up 4-foot berms, some landscaping and so on. Regardless, it's in the line of sight, and it changes the nature of that of our property and the aesthetics and our enjoyment. Last week, the joint meetings were not here. It was approximately 4.5 hours, for which there was in attendance the seniors in opposition to it. Many of them spoke, probably 10 or a dozen. I was one of them. But as the night went on, the attorney, Lugari, gave a very concise summarization as to what was before the board. And her comments included, though, by right. Now, here it was 60, 70, 80-year-old residents attended that meeting, and it was after 11 o'clock, for which they find out their input was for naught. And that was reprehensible, I thought. You know, here it is, people coming out, getting involved in the process. And the only reason why we were there in the process is because originally we were given notification of the August 6th hearing, for which the applicant provided notice to us. Now, it's my understanding, was it Title 40, 55D, 62.1, any changes to the zoning, characteristics, the boundaries, or anything, the adjoining property owners are to be notified. We were notified by the township initially with the I-3 zoning, okay, of last July. No notification of the change for the redevelopment zone. I think that's a fault in the whole process because we weren't given adequate notice to provide input to Township Committee and their professionals as they were reviewing the master plan and the development plan proposals. I really feel that an injustice was done to everyone who is, as a result of the unintended consequence of the township to limit warehouse, large warehouses. Well, now we have lawsuits and so on filed for which planning is done in the back room, settling with attorneys. A Criterion's attorney mentioned that they had 7 or 8 meetings with township representatives. You know, all along, the rest of us are in the dark as far as what is going to take place on these adjoining properties. I think it's wrong. I think it should be corrected. I'd like to ask whether or not Ms. Lord can confirm whether or not notices were sent to the adjoining property owners for the IR3.
Well, I'll defer to Doug,
If I'm
but
correct.
Yeah.
the IR3 is not a zone, there's a redevelopment plan, and I'll defer to Doug. There were not notices to individual property owners for the redevelopment plan.
So let me just address the points of law, and then I'll talk more generally, because I do want to announce that we had executive session discussion tonight, and this property was the subject of that discussion in part. Just, sure, I'll do my best. Oh, somebody seems to have stuck it. There we go. All right. How's that? Okay. The section of the statute that you referred to is for a zoning change in a traditional zoning change sense where you're amending the zoning under the master plan. That is not the section that's followed in the redevelopment. So there's a separate process under the redevelopment law that requires notice to the properties that are impacted by the redevelopment plan, meaning those actual properties, not a 200-foot list within. I understand your comments and concerns, but that's what the law requires on the redevelopment front. In terms of I wasn't obviously at the board proceeding and what was said in terms of by right or not. I usually only refer to things as by right when it's a straightforward subdivision that meets the requirements and no variances are required. This was still a site plan application, so I don't think that the applicant enjoys the same status as quote-unquote by right. It is a site plan approval. They just have to comply with what the zone called for, but there can still be comments from the public, which the board may impose conditions based upon, provided they're reasonable. The governing body met tonight and discussed a number of privileged and confidential, pending litigation, those sorts of things. One of the discussion items that took the most of the time was 401 Creek Road. The committee is unanimous in that they are concerned about the impact of the residents and the concerns that were expressed at the meeting. Based upon that, informally, they asked me to reach out to the developer to discuss the potential of whether the developer would be willing to negotiate with the township on potential sale of the property. We cannot make any promises. This is very much in the early stages. It obviously is a significant dollar value wherever it falls. They purchased the property for $2 million in the beginning of, or end of 2021. There have been improvements in terms of approvals related to the properties that impact value, but we are going to, in good faith, reach out to them and have discussions about that to see if it's a possibility. Before tonight, to see if it was even a potential in their mind, they agreed that they would meet with us and discuss the potential. So we have a lot of due diligence and discussion in terms of financial impact to look at, but the township committee does want to explore that fully to see if it is feasible.
Thank you. I was going to ask that question. During the discussions, was there any conference or anything with the county as to whether or not to use open space funds of the county for them to have since they're joining
So to my knowledge, there has been individual outreach to the county. The county, as you know, has already invested a lot of money in Delanco. They did, in the process leading up to the meeting, indicate that they are moving forward with the property that is behind Field of Dreams and on the creek. So that's another investment that they're looking to make in Delanco. The indication I understand it even up to today is that they're not in a position to invest additional funds in Delanco. It doesn't mean we can't go back and have a further conversation with them, but to date, we have not looked to them for resources.
As you know, as a former assessor and real estate appraiser, the highest and best use of that property is not that use. It's an alternative use. In fact, I try to figure out the economics. If you buy it for $2 million, you're going to put in property number 4, and they have multiple facilities, one across the street that's vacant, 2 in Delaware. I don't see how the economics work, but how they want to spend their money is their business, but it's not the highest and best use, I think, in an investment interest of this town.
Joe, can I just interrupt you for a second there on that? Because I want to pick your brain a little bit, and we could do this offline if you want. Do you have an idea on highest and best use?
I do. I do. A couple different
Okay.
scenarios.
You want to just talk to me tomorrow?
If we talk,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
I think you addressed all my concerns, and I appreciate your consideration. One last thing. Would committee support the petition drive of the residents as, you know, maybe further support their negotiations?
I don't know that.
I think,
think that would
I
help
don't know that it's going to
negotiations.
impact, I mean, I'll defer to the committee, but I don't know that that's going to impact the position of the township positively. We're going to be in a position, if we are able to proceed, we're going to be negotiating with them on price.
Yeah, and just from negotiating contracts professionally, I think a petition could actually harm the negotiations, whereas they're seeing, hey, the residents want them to purchase this, let's jack up the price.
Yeah.
I could certainly see the harm in actually a petition. We're well aware of what the residents want. I don't think petitioning criterion would help at all.
And if the purpose of a petition is to convince the committee's already convinced.
Well, the committee was convinced when they voted 5-0 for
Yeah.
redevelopment and so on. So
Yeah.
you've heard us, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
And just real quickly for the benefits of the audience here and the audience at home, just a quick history on how this all came about. Before the township changed the zoning for 401 Creek Road and other parcels to the I-3 zone, it was zoned I-1 light industrial, and it's been historically that before Newton's Landing and other sections of town were developed. And I-1 allowed for warehouse construction, as well as the type of facility that Criterion received approval for from the Joint Land Use Board. And in 2023, when we saw all these warehouses getting built everywhere, we took action to not allow for the development of more warehouses in these zones. And we had a subcommittee formed to review all of the ordinances and decide what properties should be removed from the I-1 zone. And this began as early as March of '23, and we received a lot of public input and concern on the increase in warehouse usage and creation in such a short period of time, not just in Delanco, but throughout the entire state of New Jersey. And then in July of 2023, we introduced an ordinance for the change to the I-3 zone. We held a public hearing on July 5th in which numerous members of the public attended. All of them lived in Edgewater Park, except for you, Mr. Robinson. You were the only one in Delanco that attended that meeting. And everyone seemed to support the ordinance to prevent more development of warehouses. And the owners of these industrial properties, they sent their attorneys, of course, to object to the change. So the township was doing its job to protect our residents from warehouse development. And before the public hearing, we sent, as required by law, we sent the proposed ordinance to the Joint Land Use Board for consistency review with the master plan. and they found it consistent with the master plan, subject to some minor comments. And then we had some minor revisions to the ordinance and held another public hearing in August of '23, and which no members of the public attended. And then August 18th, that's when the attorneys for the affected properties, they filed suit against the township in the Superior Court of the state of New Jersey. So I'm not going to get into the negotiations of the settlement to get rid of the suit, which would cost our taxpayers a lot of money. But in short, the settlement provided we would declare 401 property as an area in need of redevelopment or rehabilitation, and they'd be able to file for the truck repair facility as permitted without the use variances and just the site plan approval. So not really an as-right, but they would still need the site plan approval. And the truck repair facility was a permitted use before making any changes to the zone. So in the I-1 zone, if we didn't touch the ordinance at all, they still would be able to have the facility that they went to the land use board for site plan. And the current building has been there since 1972. We discussed the settlement at township committee meetings in the beginning of '24. We had a resolution on the agenda in February of this year to authorize the settlement and the introduction of the ordinance. And then we had a public hearing on the ordinance for the rehabilitation plan on April 1st, which again, no members of the public came out to speak on that. And obviously we then passed that ordinance. And that's where we're here today, where they had their hearing last week and got approved. So that's just a little history. It's not like we just came out and did this and there was no feedback. We had a lot of public hearings on this. There's been a lot of discussions at all of the township committee meetings on this. That's really that on that. Anyone else have any comments or questions now?
Just one last follow-up.
Yeah, just come up to the mic, Joe.
My recollection is, okay, the vote on the joint land use provision was 5-3. My recollection was that 3 of the members who voted yes referred back to the by right statement. So they were relying on the attorney that, hey, your hands are tied, they had to go. They just had to
Yeah, and again, maybe it's a difference in, I don't know that the MLUL says by right in it, right? I think it's just a phrase that people throw around. Lou's an excellent land use attorney. I don't mean to undercut that in any way. I just didn't want you to feel like doing public comment is for naught, because I do think it's always taken into account by the board, and to the extent they can implement any improvements or have the ability to, they try to.
Thank you, sir. You had a comment? Just come on up. Just give your name and address for the record, please.
Mike McDonald, excuse me, 17 Emery Web. Concerning the meeting from last week, I'm just bringing up a few points that a lot of the residents had concerns with the way the meeting was handled. They kept harping on the fact that this was going to be a repair facility, but yet they're expanding the parking lot, and they're going to allow, they conceded, the board conceded to them double stacking the trailers. Now, how are you repairing a trailer when you're double stacked? To me, that sounds like storage.
Double stacked. I think double stacking the parking, meaning one truck, one trailer in back of the other in the parking space, not height-wise.
Backed up.
You were led to believe they're stacking.
In terms of the
All right.
No.
application, I'm almost positive it was double stack, meaning the parking back to back.
Yeah, that's a parking term.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right.
yeah. I'd agree with you if it was vertically. That would seem impossible. Yeah, I would certainly agree with that.
All right, that's not repairing. Okay, and we have concerns about runoff from the expanded parking lot getting into the creek. Because a repair facility, trucks, they're going to be leaking a lot of lubricants. And another point is that they had a specialist for traffic. And they said that they would only make right-hand turns out of the facility. But coming in, they can come in both ways, fine. But he didn't take into account deliveries for parts. And at least they didn't mention it. Now, if you ever sat for an oil change at your local garage, you see one or two cars coming in from Advanced Auto Parts delivering oil filter. What do you think is gonna come in from trucks? While they're working on trailer, we need an accident. It's not gonna be delivered in a car. And there's gonna be more traffic on Creek Road. But
Yep. And I hope members of the public gave that to the land use board last week. That would be the appropriate place to, give all these comments.
the sound was horrible. We asked twice for them to use their microphones. They made an effort that lasted maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then we were all doing this. And the comments from the people when we left were, I picked up 1/3 of what was being said.
Hopefully these sound panels we're putting in here now will help for that in the future. That doesn't amplify, that records. That's for recording.
Sorry.
You don't have your headphones on, right, Jen?
It's coming through a little bit, but it is recorded.
But that's it, the enlarged part is the trailer stacking, you cleared that up. There, you can see we do a 5-foot buffer for that poor property owner that's right next to them. I believe the current zoning is 20-foot buffer. Now there's only 5 feet between the administration building and the next door neighbor.
I'm pretty sure that's what's there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And they don't need to comply with the current zones when it changes ownership.
So they would need to knock down the building and move it then. I think the whole purpose was to reuse the existing building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as I understand
Knock
it.
down then,
No.
because we're very concerned about property. I'm in the real estate business.
Mhm.
I've been doing it for 18 years now, and I've seen what property values go in developments when a commercial property is built next to it. This has been standing here, I understand
Mhm.
it. It's been there before Newton's Landing. But they're changing what the facility is.
Right, but it's also the same permitted use, which been permitted for decades. It's, like you said, the facility's been there. It's been there since 1972-ish, and that use, it's permitted. That had nothing to do with the land use change from the I-1 to I-3. That's always been allowed. So any change to your property value, it would have been incorporated when you purchased a property next to an industrial zone. When an appraiser does an appraisal, they're looking at all the permitted uses to see what exactly could possibly be built next to your house when they're taking into consideration of a value. So I completely understand your point, but it's something it's been pre-existing, and nothing has changed as far as that's concerned.
But we feel that they're overdeveloped. They're making changes to the property, it's going to be overdeveloped. That's our concern. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Scott Butte, 18 Pennington Court. John, you guys do a great job. That's the best I'm gonna have to say. Went by Saturday, got my bag, got my lights, get a paper, pick up after your dog, rabies, and stormwater. One of the issues that came up with this application last Tuesday was they're gonna pave the whole lot. That's only gonna run one place, and they can have all the basins they want, but it's gonna migrate into the creek. How Burlington County or the state DEP is allowing them to expand what is currently there is beyond me. You can't cut a branch on a tree that is technically part of this town. You can't put leaves in the drain because there's ordinances against that. But yet, the industrial plan, it just wipes all that clean. The other thing, their application is for 12 hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But they also went on farther to say, if any of you have been here, that it could be 24/7 because trucks break down all the time. They're going to be towed in. They're going to have to sit there. They're going to be picked up. They're going to be dropped off. There's going to be constant traffic in and out of there. In the wintertime, for those of you that don't have diesel history or whatever, they will run in the cold. You can't you can't run a truck in or out of anywhere if it's totally cold. So the diesel's going to be there. I also understand they're going to clear the woods all the way to the playing field. So not only will the residents be bothered, but then the schoolyards, the Field of Dreams is going to be going to see that, smell that, see that, the whole mess. I was going down creek down to the Wawa intersection. And as I approached it, there was a very large tractor trailer, 2 cars and in front of them. And it turned right, it was going to 130. And it had a load of wood on it. It was a very long flatbed, had a load of wood on it. I don't know where it came in this regard, it doesn't matter. The road's narrow, but then it goes into 2 lanes if you're going to turn right or turn left. So the tractor trailer has its light on to turn right. And a truck tried, but yet it was edging over to the left lane.
Right.
So somebody tried to come up to the side, and he moved over, kept his right turn signal on, and turned to left on 130. The truck was the only vehicle that got through on that traffic light. And then one was able to sneak in and get off before the traffic came through. Another driver, I don't know, I'm not sure he was coming out of DMV or one of the other yards this afternoon. It was just a tractor, not the trailer, just the tractor. He came out halfway in the road and stopped. I think he was going to turn right, which I'm not sure why he came out so far. So he backed up. I watched him in my rearview mirror, and he turned left to go back down towards 130. The traffic analyst or whatever, traffic engineer that was here, I'd like to try his Kool-Aid, because what he was saying, the amount of impact that the traffic is going to have there, but compounded when everything else, you know, it might be 1.5 here, but you add another 1.5 here, 1.5 here, all of a sudden, you've got a lot more traffic coming through. It's bad as it is backed up. That's not, that, you know, it's, hey, if you live in town and your bridge goes out, you're gonna come out here too, and that's going to increase the traffic that much more. And I understand when it floods, I'm a new resident, I understand when it floods, that bridge can be closed. So that means the buses, that means the cars, that means deliveries in and out or whatever are going to go in, and even, you know, emergency equipment has to go through the same thing. That's all going to be a problem. It's all going to increase substantially. Glad to hear some points made, but I really think for the benefit of the town, everything is possible. And if we need, I mean, I have no problem. I would like to call out DEP and say, what were you thinking? I mean, the pollution runoff, they're going to be washing trucks. They're going to be changing diesel fuel. To be that close to the creek, I don't understand how they passed it unless there was some way they got around it. It's a shame the planner that was here, I get it for planning, I get it for tax dollars, but there's good planning and there's bad planning. And when I listened to him as a state planner or whatever, I thought, well, that's why we have a lot of the problems we have in New Jersey now. And that's not good for all of us. So hopefully something good comes out of this.
You know, I would like to comment on the traffic issue. A couple months ago, we actually did pass a resolution for the Joint Land Use Board to do a traffic study that they have tried to get passed for some time now. And that traffic study will give us some teeth to oppose some of the applicants that are coming before the Joint Land Use Board, and also address the county with the issues that we feel currently exist with 2 warehouses that are vacant. I have personally addressed the county on several occasions and encouraged this traffic study. And I am so glad that the full Township Committee finally approved it, because we need to prove to the state for the jug handle, I'm working with the state on the jug handle issue. I've been working on that for 3 years. They keep coming up with different ideas, but they're not helping. They're not resolving the issue, and money is always a question. But this traffic study will actually help the township and the Joint Land Use Board deal with some applicants that are coming in with more trucks. We don't need more trucks in town, obviously. But I just wanted you to know that they're working on that. We have addressed the areas that we want them to make sure that they're reviewing. Jug Handle, Creek Road, Coopertown Road. Eventually, there's going to have to be a light there, I'm sure. I would like to even see some of the truck traffic stop on Burlington Avenue, but we can, I think our hands are tied there. But I just want you to know that we're working on these issues because we're well aware of them.
Give us a call, because when the engineer says, well, we were out at the rush hour in the morning and the rush hour in the afternoon. No, you need to be there when DMV opens. You need to be there when Carvana lets out. You know, and that can happen all day long.
Exactly.
And
There's
it's
no
only
specific
and
time.
I point because they were sitting over here, okay?
Yep.
And you know, if that's what you're saying, you can package it the way you want it delivered. And that's what they did, and it's like.
That's
no,
what they did, but
that's
we're
what they
doing
did.
it for
I know,
Delanco Township.
I know.
And that's going to be packaged for what's really happening for this town. And it needs to be tempered. So I just want you to know that we are working on that. We're aware of it.
You can't use their traffic study that they did, the lawyers for the,
Sir, you have to
You have
come
to
up to
come
the
up
microphone.
oh, I'm sorry.
All right. I'm
Just-
sorry.
Just while you mentioned that Kate mentioned the traffic study and you mentioned with the bridge, and that's one thing we've been pushing on.
Yes.
I've been trying to deal with that for the last year and a half with the issues of that bridge closing. We've contacted the county so many times. Harry has contacted the county. I've contacted the county.
Mike Templeton did, and
Yeah,
so did I.
So many of us have,
Yeah.
and as one of the people who actually operate the emergency apparatus, and as the Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator for town, and Mr. Viereck back there as the Emergency Management Coordinator for the town, that's one thing we're terribly concerned about, is that bridge closing and emergency vehicles, police, fire, ambulances not being able to get back and forth, because we all provide mutual aid to Riverside, Delanco, Beverly, all three of us, and it's a big issue, and when we have to go all the way around over the river and through the woods to get out to the highway to come back, where it would have took 2 minutes, it takes 10, you know, that's a big concern.
And now I remember the other comment. Hopefully when your sound is done. Now
This week.
the attorney here, we could hear her because she spoke into her microphone. But, and it was mentioned earlier, the engineer, I believe, had an accent. Nobody could really understand him. And to say, a third didn't understand or whatever, I would say more than that. You could not hear what he was saying. And the microphones just don't do it. And even the board members that were there, you couldn't hear any of their comments. It's almost like, pardon me, but pardon my French, but what the hell are we doing here? Because we're the public, we're the taxpayers, we're interested in this, but nobody wants to hear us, and we could not really hear what they were saying other than we got, other than the attorney wrapping it up at the end. Her microphone worked, and we could hear. But at that point, it's kind of too late. So, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm sorry for my bit like that.
Nope,
I
you're-
apologize.
No worries.
My name's Kurt Schemmer from the 5 John Moore Way, Delanco. Two things. You can't use their traffic study because it sounded pretty good to me. It said something like close to 4,000 cars a day go through there, and only 2% are trucks, which I can believe that, but that's not the issue. The issue is the traffic up there, and even 2% trucks
Right.
are making a terrible dent.
So,
We want our own traffic study that will actually maybe be against what they're saying.
Okay.
it would be, instead of making it easy for them to have their application passed, we don't have our own traffic study, and that's why the Joint Land Use Board needs that. It needs to become a part of the master plan. It's a whole, it's circulation, it's a really quite a job, but it will help them, because the applicant brings the traffic study, and how can we rebut it?
So I can actually comment more on this. I had a meeting with the traffic study company.
Oh, that's right.
And the Joint Land Use Board Subcommittee. I'm on the Joint Land Use as the liaison. There's going to be, I think, 7 or 8 different points throughout town on the different county roads that will be collecting the data, how many cars, how fast they're going, how many are actually trucks, what that truck weight is. So it's actually pretty extensive. And I think it's important to do the entire town, which is why we passed the traffic circulation study, which we did last year. We budgeted for it, but they weren't able to get it done. So we were able to allocate the funds again this year. So to do every entrance throughout town, it'll be a bigger picture of exactly what's coming in from everywhere, not just on Creek Road coming in and out. So we take those traffic studies with a grain of salt, to be honest with you, with these applicants, because it's only a small snippet.
I see your point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with it. I agree with it. Another question. When they get approved, which they're going to get approved, they had all the things lined up, okay? Number one, do you guys have the power to, at least, if it's going to get done, to make them build a 12-foot, I'd rather look at a wall than a parking lot full of tractor trailers and not just a truck, but the trailers. I'd rather look at the wall for these people in Pennington Avenue. Do you have the power to do that?
The application was approved
Yeah,
already.
It was approved last week.
Yeah.
So let me just say that
The
I think
5-foot berm.
that the initial effort is going to be to see if we can acquire the property. If that fails for some reason, we can certainly talk to them about whether they'd be willing to negotiate something increased there, but it's going to require something from the township in turn at this point. In other words, we'd have to offer them some incentive because it's going to be a cost outlay for them. I have no idea whether they'd be willing to do it. But I think the first goal is to run down this issue of whether they're willing to sell.
Okay. And just another question. If they are approved, okay, and they put those basins in, and of course all the runoff's going to go into the basin, do I, as a concerned citizen, am I allowed to go into that basin when it's dry, dig down a foot, say I take out 16 ounces of dirt. As long as I put 16 ounces of dirt back in, make it look like no one ever dug there, and have that analyzed by a private laboratory, am I allowed to do that?
I'm not an attorney, but I think there's one word for that. It's called trespassing.
Trespassing.
That's trespassing.
That's what I'm, okay.
Yeah, it's private property.
Yeah.
Is there a way that the township can hold their feet to the fire that way and get testing done? I mean, how much?
The township, that's all the Joint Land Use Board, and the Joint Land Use Board approved the application last week. So it's not like they're coming back for more approvals. They got their approval last week.
Yeah. Is there any way to test that, get that tested? Because you know it's going to happen. That's all that runoff from all the trucks, travel on the roads,
Well, I
tar, gasoline.
Believe the Joint Land Use Board, I wasn't there, from what I understand, they had a condition of the approval that they have to submit their Phase 1 environmental study, which would show the current environmental condition of the property.
Okay, but how about when they're there for a year or 2 years, 3 years?
I would imagine there would, and I'm not an environmental expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I would imagine there would need to be a complaint to the DEP about any proposed or any possible concerns, and the DEP would have to enforce that. Doug, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I think I was not, so I don't usually get involved into the level of this in Delanco. I do board work elsewhere, and typically what I see are conditions that require them to ensure that they're not, creating discharges that run right into the grates and right out to the water. The areas where they're actually going to be doing any work have measures put in place to intercept that before it gets to that point.
Filter it?
Yeah,
Okay.
traps.
Well, if you remember, there'll be another session later on.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Sir?
Stephen Moore, 28 Wonderful Lead Avenue, Delanco, New Jersey. Didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I wanted to speak because I'm a member of the Delanco Recreation Commission, and I was surprised to hear Solicitor Heimer's comments regarding the property. As it was stated, the county and the township have made significant investments in Delanco in the recreational facilities. This property is right next to one of those facilities. And I echo a lot of the concerns that gentleman had in regards to traffic. We've lost a substantial amount of property to commercial development in the last couple of years. You drive through Delanco, it's definitely not Delanco of the 1990s and the 2000s, all the warehousing, all the trees that are gone, and also the amount of traffic that we now have. So I just want to say that there are other members of the commission tonight. I won't speak for them, but I'll speak for myself. I fully endorse the township committee's pursuit of looking into this. And please let us know if there's anything we can do to support your efforts. Please swing and, Mayor Barlett, Deputy Mayor Seuss, and the rest of the committee, thank you very much. And I hope it proves successful and that we can, hopefully get a hold of this property because I think that there's a lot of opportunity here from a recreational perspective and also protect quality of life for the nearby residents. So thank you for being a committee of action.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
I just remembered one more thing.
Oh, come on up.
Since you're putting these things up to make the sound better, I was going to call the American with Disabilities Act. They're located in Somerville, New Jersey, for the state of New Jersey. You guys have to provide, you got to be able to hear the meeting. That's a fact. Since you're doing this, I'm going to wait, and if we come in after this is all done, and we still can't hear, I was sitting up here the other night, and no one would speak up like that gentleman, or this lady, these ladies, or that lady down there. None of them would speak up. They wouldn't pull the microphone close to them. They were pretty contemptuous of us, some of them, not all. And I think you guys appoint them. Is that true?
The Joint Land Use Board
Some
members?
of the
Yeah.
board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna wait on that, but I'm gonna start attending meetings. And if we can't hear, I'm going to file a complaint. And I'm gonna get a few other guys and people back here to file a complaint also. I just wanna let you know, because it did say in there that I have to inform you of that first. So I would make sure, maybe get some more speakers. Gotta be able to hear what you guys say. Can everybody hear me or no? Maybe you can't, I don't know. These don't seem to work.
These are for recording.
Yeah, well, you gotta be able to hear back there.
I can hear. I can hear.
You know, you gotta speak up.
Yes.
And, one more thing. If that place does get approved, okay?
It's been approved.
Definitely approved.
Well, it's gonna happen, so,
It's
No.
not going to happen. It was approved.
Yes.
Last week, it was approved.
okay, all right.
It's not an if anymore.
Okay, well, if the noise ordinance is so bad, are these people allowed to call the police?
Yes, sir.
Of course.
Yep.
Okay. And,
Absolutely.
okay, and they can file complaints?
Yes, sir.
100%.
Great, thank you very much.
Did
But
everybody
just-
hear me?
But just to
Wait, Just to
reiterate,
make sure they can hear me.
we are trying to purchase the property so that this does not happen.
Right.
Can
In
everyone
case
hear
anyone
me?
didn't hear that.
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Did you catch what she said?
I can't hear.
She said, just so you understand, they're attempting to purchase that property,
I understand, yeah, I heard that before by that gentleman.
but she's
just said
reiterating
it
that,
again.
though.
Okay, that would be the greatest thing.
Okay.
but I don't think it's gonna happen, and they,
Well, I think you need to have a little faith in us. Give us a shot.
Yeah.
It's literally been
Definitely.
4 days.
Please, have some faith in us.
Scott
We'll
Buick again.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Scott Buick again. And that was really bone of contention was that the land use, and I don't know whether they were cornered into it legally, I don't understand it. But yet yes, it was approved, but there were like 100 reasons why it should not have been approved. There were a lot of things that they promised to do. Who's going to know whether they do them or not? I felt as though the land use had dropped their drawers. I mean, I don't feel except for 2 or 3 members that really pushed back and ended up voting no, that the others really, either it was predetermined to be passed and voted, and maybe it was because of the legalities, but the gut feeling is that everybody from Newton's Landing that was here felt it was a done deal, and almost as I had said earlier, why did we bother coming if they were going to do what they did? Because they really didn't question, they didn't tackle them on anything. The attorney just read off all their promises, and they're going to do it, but I mean, how do you pass it on promises?
Well,
It's part of the written resolution, and they have to meet all the requirements of the resolution before they can occupy the facility.
Right.
Doug, I don't mean,
yeah,
Check them on that.
our professionals
Our
do, the board
Township
professionals. And it's very common, particularly on site plan approvals, to have what's called conditional approval, meaning it's a resolution of approval, but there's a host of conditions that get attached to it. I hear what you're saying, and it can be a frustrating process, especially if you're coming into it at that point. You know, you're right, there is a lot that has happened that is already sort of governing that site and what can and can't happen there. And they're just meeting a requirement that says, yeah, what we're proposing is consistent with what's permitted there, and we're going to do A, B, C, and D down the line. All that has to be addressed before they can
But
open up shop.
But when they move back the easement to be closer to the homes, is that a requirement?
The,
They're getting into that.
I'm talking about the requirement of the plans. I think there was a variance that was called out that might not have been correct. But again, this governing body, I don't go to the board meetings because it's their jurisdiction. We don't want to be sitting in the back row sort of with our arms crossed saying, what are you guys going to do tonight, right? Yeah, so I just want to take a step back for a second and just impress upon the residents, across the board, this governing body cares. You know, I know they stay up at night and worry about these things. We do. And if you look at the history of how we got here that the mayor laid out, what we were trying to do was, it's funny, I've been here for a lot of years at this point, and some of these gray hairs are Delanco hairs, but the reality is that for years, we were trying to look for, or the governing body, and rightly so, everybody was trying to look for, how do we bring in ratables to benefit the taxpayers, right? What ended up happening was warehousing changed, not just in Delanco, across the state of New Jersey, across the country. The intensity of the trucking, the frequency of the trucking really became impactful. And to this governing body's credit, they didn't just sit back and say, well, this is the way it is. They went forward and tried to make revisions. So the I-3 zone was an attempt to improve the residents' life overall, including your neighborhood. The settlement that they wanted initially was, we want to be rezoned back to I-1. That was their first request, and the answer from the governing body was no. That could have entailed a warehouse. So, I want you to know that the movement on that property has always been with an eye towards the betterment of the residents. I know now that there's, this approval and their direct changes are going to happen. It's concerning, and the governing body is concerned about it too. It's a unique situation where everything on that side of the road developed not consistent with the original zoning, changed over time, and that this piece, 401 Creek, got left sort of in the midpoint there. We're doing what we can to try and see if we can cure that. But I hope you guys understand that every step that the committee took was trying to make the residents' life better.
You will let people back in the development know what your efforts will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any other comments or questions at this time? And again, there will be another session later on in the meeting.
Yeah. As the mayor has outlined, this project, this property had a long torturous history. And sometimes when you get to the end of the road there, there isn't a clean good choice. It's usually a bad choice and a really bad choice.
The least worst option.
Yes. And that's kind of where things ended up through history. Yeah, it'd be nice to turn the calendar back, 6, 8, 10 years and go at it again. We wear a lot of hats up here, and we spend a lot of time up here as volunteers for this community. And we put in a lot of time, and we depend on you, we depend on the public to talk to us here or walking the street or whatever. We're not all seeing, all knowing, big things and small. 22 years ago, there was a land use issue, 2 of them, that came up that residents became aware of, either at a meeting or talking with people, or, it's a small town, news travels. And they got together and they did some research, and they came to the committee or came to committee members and said, hey, this is an issue and this is a problem, and I'd like you to point that out, and here's some things I dug up at the library, and see what you can do with it. And those 2 things diverged quite dramatically from the 401 situation, but they deflected those 2 land use issues completely. So we depend on you, and we need your help, and to look over the fence or look down the street and say, hey, what's going on over here? Or here's something that's a code enforcement issue, or something that the police need to get into. But it's like I said, sometimes we're not left with the best choices. We're always trying to balance the tax load on you. We're trying to work with our budget. I've been up here for quite some time. Ms. Fitzpatrick's been here for quite some time, along with Mr. Olet. We've seen the ups and downs of the finances and the economy for this community. Right now, the economy is good, our finances are good. This job is a $50,000 job. We didn't have a lot of loose change to do something like this, and this room's been a pain in the ass for 20 years. And that's been regrettable it's taken this long. But we're getting to projects. Mr. Fenimore needs a new pole barn, and we have to buy a new fuel farm system out there and stormwater system. And to the gentleman's point on the DEP, they do have an 800 number for spills. It's usually for larger major spills, but you can start there to call attention to something that you think might be going on. So I just want to illuminate a couple points there. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. All right. With that, we'll close this public comment session, and we'll go to comments and reports. We'll start with our professionals. Mr. Heinhold.
The only other thing I want to report at this time is just to bring up again, the state has adopted 4th round affordable housing regulations. Delanco sits in a very good position because of all of the compliance efforts that were made, particularly in round 3. We have an excellent affordable housing planner, Mary Beth Lonergan, who is working on projecting out what our obligation will be in the 4th round. And in light of that, we think we're going to be in a position where we have to do very little in terms of significant impact in major development impacting Delanco. So I just want to reference that again. We will report as we know more, but the initial indications from Mary Beth are that we are in a strong position, which is hard to do in affordable housing. So it's good track record for the governing body.
Thank you, Doug. Harry,
Harry, please pull the microphone directly to your mouth.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
we can hear you now.
No?
Louder.
I'll try and speak up.
Pretend Karen's yelling at you.
That's when I'd be quiet. First off, with regard to the basin out there, I haven't even seen the plans, because that's all done through the Land Use Board. But once it starts under construction, it comes under the jurisdiction of the township committee and their engineer. So we will be periodically inspecting those basins, even after it's all built. We don't typically look for contaminants, but if we see something out there that draws our eye to it, we'll investigate it. Mainly what we're looking for is make sure that the basins are functioning properly for stormwater purposes. So they are looked at. That might give you a little comfort. With regard to my report, the 2024 road programs, we have the surveys done. The design is, preliminary design is done for Delaware and a portion of Second Street. We sent those plans to the Shade Tree Commission for their comments. And they had some comments, but we're waiting for some more official word from them to review our plans. The plan is for those to have the designs all completed this year. We can decide if we want to go out to bid this year and start construction in the spring, or just hold on to them and we'll have the plans ready to bid in the spring. But the construction will be happening in the spring, summer of next year. The Zubrook seawall, that project is basically complete. I will be doing a punch list this week, sending that to the contractor. I'm working on the grass is coming up pretty nicely now, so it looks
great.
good.
Nice.
I am obtaining prices for installing a fence, a railing on top of the seawall for safety reasons. I have contacted the manufacturer, and we're working out ways to get it done properly and most economic way of doing it. But we're really shooting to have that done by the holidays, that fence on the top, and then the park can be opened up if the committee so chooses.
Like the Thanksgiving holiday?
Which holiday are we talking about, Halloween?
The Christmas holidays.
Oh, okay.
4th of July,
Well, as long as it's not like Easter.
yeah. No, I'm confident we'll get her done. The pipe repair on 719 Delaware, that's completed. The resident had some issues with her ramp. The contractor came out and fixed that. Also installed the side. So he's 100% done with his responsibility on that project. The Babe Ruth Park and Field of Dream paths. I contacted 3 contractors for prices to do that. If we can get it under the bid threshold, we can just go out to get proposals. I'm meeting with one on Wednesday, and I spoke with one on the phone again today. I spoke with them last week and then on the phone again today. They're both going to supply prices. The third person has not gotten back to me yet, but we're working on that to get that done this fall. And for the audience, it's going to be an asphalt path that'll go along the Field of Dreams where the fence is. It's going to parallel the fence. And actually, if we have enough funds, it'll go all the way up to the property that we're talking about at 401. The other portion of it is on the Babe Ruth field, and that's going to go from the parking lot and give handicap access to the bleachers and to the skate park area.
So do we have like a deadline? Like, are we expecting everything by Friday?
I'll have definitely one by Friday. I'm shooting to try and have at least 2, but
Okay.
yes.
And they can probably get that done this month?
Yeah, all of them, I told them it's a rush and we're doing by proposal, so get out there and they're all in agreement with that.
Perfect, thanks.
Harry, I guess you don't have anything to do with the courts, or do you?
I don't, Scott's
Okay.
handling that.
Okay. Because I noticed that they're done, but are they usable yet?
No, they just painted lines today.
Yeah, and I noticed
They have
there's
to
a,
go back and still do it.
still do, okay.
Yeah,
When do
and
we
it has to
know?
cure for a period of time
Yeah.
before you can start
Yeah,
using it.
yeah,
By the
okay,
end of the week.
okay, good.
And just on, with the paths and how, from the handicap parking spaces, that's just another thing we're doing, just to echo his comment before about ADA compliance and making things accessible. That's just one more thing we're doing. We're doing all of these ADA curb ramps as well, just to bring everything, make everything as accessible as possible, because that is important to us.
The 200 Ash Street, the HDSRF grant, as you know, Scott Taylor prepared the conceptual plan. I sent that to DEP. I'm waiting for their comments.
Good.
That's just the technicality, so they're not going to have real comments on the design of the plan or anything like that. And I asked them to give me a guesstimate on when they'll be getting back to us on the funding itself. So we'll wait to hear from them.
And then when's the next step do we have to go out to bid for that remediation?
Yeah, there's 2 agencies that have to approve the grant. Then we can go out and, once it gets approved, we can spend monies and those monies will be reimbursed. And that's for remediating the contaminated soil. And what the plan is on this, there's 2 methods of remediation. One is you can just get it below a certain standard, yet still contaminate it, and basically cap it. And the township has to pay a fee to the state, a yearly fee every year for eternity, if you do that method. If you completely clean it up and get it below tighter standards, you take it off that list and you don't have to pay the state any more money, and it's a clean site and it's not deed restricted. So the plan is to remove that soil, so it'll be excavated, contaminated areas will be excavated, and clean soil will be brought in its place, and it'll be a clean site when we're done with it.
Now, when you say contaminated, it's contaminated because it's historic fill, not because there was oil there or anything hazardous in that capacity.
Yeah, 99% of it was historic fill. And what that means is if fill was placed in an area, they call it historic fill. And that's considered contaminated material in certain cases. If you don't know the source, correct. If
Right.
the source is unknown, they're considered contaminated. So that's what the contamination is out there. It's just old fill that somebody brought up in a barge and put in there. No idea how or when.
Like if it came from Pennsylvania, it's considered contaminated because it wasn't tested and they don't know where it came from.
It could have been from
That-
Pennsylvania
yeah,
or anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like New Jersey soil has to be tested now.
Well,
so-
now, but back then,
Yeah,
that's essentially what I call it, historic fill. I mean,
Yeah.
the entire city of Camden is built on historic fill.
right.
So basically, there could be not a drop of any sort of chemical in there. It's still considered contaminated because it's historic.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
The MS4 stormwater permit, the SPPP, Storm Pollution Prevention Plan is completed. It's on the website. We did make a couple revisions today to it, so there may be a revised revision going on the site tomorrow, but they're minor revisions. But that is posted, and you're covered for that requirement. The MS4 permit, we're looking to have that submitted within the next couple of days. There was a couple more revisions that I believe actually John had a couple comments on it, and we'll have that submitted.
What's going on with the pump at Field of Dreams? Are we waiting on a cage or something?
Yes, if you see it out there, there's a fence, a safety fence, plastic safety fence around it. The part of our punch list for that contractor, well, the original plan, it was supposed to be a accessible cage, meaning it had to be hinged and lockable. So anyone could maintain it, he could lift it up and turn it over. He installed it without hinges. You had to unbolt it, have 2 men pick it up. So as part of, before we made any final payment to them, which we have made our final payment to them, requiring them to put a hinged cover on it. So they took that cover off, they took it back to their machine shop, and they're fixing it. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're adding hinges to it and a lot. Once that's done, they'll bring it back, and as long as they're satisfied that it functions properly, that project can be closed out. That's the last thing we're holding on them.
Did you see the email from Jim McHugh about the boxes in the ground? I did go out there and look. They are getting chipped up already. I don't know. I mean, they're not that far up, but I guess it's enough that they are just running them over.
Yeah, I did see that, and I was going to take a walk out there and look at it myself, but I can have the electrician. That's the electrical boxes from.
Yeah, the access panels in the ground.
Yeah, each pole has a box, a translate box
Yeah.
on the base of it, in the ground. And apparently, at least Jim thinks they're too high, and they're getting scratches and breaks them. I mean, they are too high, so.
Maybe they're just mowing the lawn too low. Bring the blades up.
What
They like it low.
happens all the time is if especially if it's on a hill, and those are because the lights are on the outside of the field, so they're in the swale. So they're on a tilt. So the mower runs over it, it's pretty common that they get hit. But I'm gonna take a look at it and see if we can get them to load them.
Great. Thanks, Harry.
And that's all I have.
All right. Anyone have anything else for Harry? Nope. Alrighty. All right, let's see, Township Administrator's not here this evening. We'll go to Department Heads. Lieutenant Warren.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Give the ending numbers for the month of September. We had, excuse me, 21 police cases for a total of 173 for the year. There were 97 motor vehicle violations issued with a total of 527 for the year. There were 185 motor vehicle stops with a total of 1,159 for the year. And our officers responded to 1,069 total calls for service for the month of September, with a year-end total as of to date, 8,562. So we've been a little busy. Tomorrow evening, our state police training commission, we're offering the lieutenant's test. So our 3 sergeants will be taking the test tomorrow, Sergeant Deering, Maloney, and Epifano. The test will be tomorrow, but the results obviously won't be out until probably spring, give or take, of 2025. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right. Every time I hear those numbers about the number of incidents each month, I'm like, really? Over 1,000 incidents in our little tiny town? It's
Calling constantly, but that's what we want. I mean, we encourage people to call, 911 or the non-emergency number. And like you said, yes, if you hear something or is an issue, please call. We'd rather you call and it not be something than not call and it had been something. So, yeah, please.
100%.
Please do.
Thank you.
Lieutenant, on tonight's
Fern,
agenda.
can you put the microphone up to your mouth, please?
On tonight's agenda, we have the John Deere.
I was going to wait. Do you want to address that now or when we go over that?
Okay, well.
It's up to you.
It's on the consent agenda, so you might
can
as
do
well
it now.
address that now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's where I was
Yeah.
going. Okay. The 2 questions I have, which I'm sure you folks in the police department already looked at these things, but I don't know that, and so I don't want to make that assumption. The vehicle, will you be able to put, I guess, a winch attachment to it on
Okay,
the front
so
end?
the 2 questions originally you had was as far as the Polaris originally. So just so you know, what I did, excuse me, we actually started this process actually over a year ago. So originally, we went from looking at getting the quad to then going to the off-road vehicle, which we felt would be more beneficial, more means to utilize it. So when we looked at the Polaris first, what we're getting at now is the John Deere XUV. It's equivalent with the Polaris Ranger. One of the problems, number one, the base price for it is almost $3,000 more than what we got for our quote for the John Deere with all of the add-ons to it. The John Deere XUV, we have the capability to have a winch to it. We didn't get it for right now, but we're able to do add-ons as need be. One of the other issues too with the Polaris Ranger, it's more recreational and its turn radii is less. So what we need for Hawk Island, we need to be able to better acquiesce the trails. With the John Deere, we'll have more ability to do that and do it safely. So,
And on the safety issue, is this a two-seater, a four-seater?
four, actually it's four-seater. I have a back compartment we can carry some equipment. It's going to have, once we purchase it, because that's the thing too, once we get it, it's then going to be taken to Winter Ford in Cherry Hill and have emergency lights affixed to it, as well as our department name and things of that nature. But yeah, it'll have safety features. So,
That was my
was
concern,
it.
was that if you're out, if an officer's out there and that they have the tools to deal with an emergency and, you know, how you end up responding to that.
yeah,
Whether
so
you
what
have
we'll,
to
yeah,
pull-
so what we'll do, like all our vehicles have an emergency EMS bag, AED as well. For this here, it'll have an emergency bag with it as well. It's a compartment with it's plastic for the windows, for the side and the front. But the goal was just be able to have something where we can access Hawk Island quickly if there's an issue. Obviously, our other officers are still going to respond accordingly, and then we'll go from there for wherever else we need. So,
Thank you.
okay.
John?
Yes, good evening. Had final brush pickup. We picked up
Before
six-
Carolyn yells at you, into the microphone.
Please speak into the microphone.
Can you hear me?
A little bit closer, pull it to you.
Right up there.
Is that better?
That's better.
Treat it like a COVID test.
Just don't put it in your nose.
Picked up 60 cubic yards of brush for our final pass, which some people don't know when the final pass is, so naturally we'll be back out again and pick it up. We put a half a ton of asphalt out. We lined the soccer field 6 times. We tried 3 different kinds of paint, one color, and everything doesn't seem to be working, so we think it might be the field's getting cut too short, and it's taking the lines away. The colored paint that we use to separate the main field, one of the main fields, where they have 2 fields in 1 field, it hardly lasts at all. I don't know why, but we've tried 3 different companies for paint, and it's, you know, so there is a little bit of a problem there. And we're spending a lot of money on paint, just so you know.
What about the yellow paint today? Did Ryan test it?
Yeah, well, we bought the 5-gallon, Erin
Yeah.
bought a 5-gallon, and
Yeah.
we tried it. And it looked like it went on great, but then, you know, like 2 or 3 days later, it fades out real quick. So,
Are we getting fluorescent or is it just regular?
just regular.
You saw my email to Jim, right?
Yeah,
And he said he's going to try to cut in the beginning of the week
Yeah.
and maybe, so I don't know. He's aware of it.
He's doing a good, really good job out there, and I know we've had grubs there every year. I don't think it's, usually when you see a lot of birds on the field, then you know you got grubs. So I haven't seen that, but there is some, like around the berm, I did notice there's a lot of weeds from like where the berm is to the street, to the parking lot. There seems a lot of weeds in there, and it looks like, I don't ever remember the sprinkler not hitting that, but apparently it didn't. But next time you're out there, just take a look at that, and I'm gonna tell Jim about that too. We made our final pass through the whole town for cutting all the township fields. We finally finished screening and hauling the compost out. It takes almost 2 weeks of constant messing with the leaves. That's the only way I can put it. We hauled out 157 loads. So that's pretty much, it was nice compost too for a change. We started sweeping the streets again, had Bobby out with the sweeper, and as far as picking leaves up, it does fantastic. For a sweeper shouldn't be picking leaves up, but I don't know if you noticed all the leaves on Burlington Avenue around the bend. We made, I don't know if you saw all the leaves out there.
Yeah.
He made a pass down there and got them all. and really surprising. We had the cleanup of Hawk Island, and we made a dump truck load of trash. We had the township cleanup, we had two 30-yard dumpsters, we had a pressure-treated dumpster, but we had hardly anything in that. And we had a 40-yard metal dumpster for TVs and metal, and that was probably about half full. So we had a pretty good cleanup. This year we only made one truckload of tires. Generally, we have two truckloads, and it's in the 60s and the 70s. We picked up 37 tires this time, so, and that's pretty good. We finally got to one of the leaning trees out in Newton Landing. We took that down, and hopefully we'll be starting leaves, which looks like we are probably going to have an early fall this year. So we're scheduled probably the end of October sometime. If we need to go out sooner, we will. And that's all I have.
John, did they tell you about the 2 truck tires out of Hawk Island?
No.
They're on the path. They're big truck tires right along the side there. Remember seeing them?
Yeah, they're about, I think they were just before the pond.
Yeah, I'll have to show you where they are, but you need the front end loader to get them out because they're big. Not a priority, just wanted to let you know.
Okay, yeah, well, I wish you would have told me before we run the tires to the landfill.
Yeah.
We run the tires to the landfill.
Ryan
During
and
the spring then.
we're supposed to tell you.
Yeah.
And you have a new guy starting on the 21st?
Yes, we'll be having a new guy start. Yep.
And I saw you guys put pull the yard sale signs down, put the community day ones up, it looks like. Those signs are permitted. I'd like to show everyone signs that are not permitted. I pulled 3 of these down over in front of the 7-Eleven today. We buy cars. On the back side, French Bulldog puppies for sale. So, and they're all throughout the town. So if your guys see them out there, tell them to feel free to
Okay.
pull them or any of these other ones down. I've been, I guess.
Could you hold that up again, please?
Sure.
To point, stay right there.
It's absolutely absurd, and and Fern and I spent so much time on this sign ordinance this
It is
year.
ridiculous.
And
Yeah.
then, and this is a company in Willingboro, the tow company, the junkyard company, but apparently this goes to the same place. So
Yeah.
it's absolutely ridiculous. If you guys see
Shame
these.
we didn't have room on, we buy houses too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, right?
Bigger sign next.
But I think for like the last 2.5 years, I've been the unofficial sign collector in the town. Whenever I see these go up, I pull them down, and there's one over at the corner, right diagonally across from the BP. It's probably 15 foot up. How the hell they get that up there? I have no idea, but, you know, if you guys are out there with a ladder or the front end loader and can carefully get to it, to rip that down, because, you know, sign proliferation everywhere, it makes the town look like crap. It really does. And that's one reason I hate the election season. You have all the campaign signs up. It's a necessary evil. But for the other 10.5 months of the year, we really don't need all this garbage around the town. And that's exactly what this is, garbage. So,
Is the next meeting my turn for show and tell? Because Mike brought the scrub brush, you got the sign. You're setting the bar really high. What am I
Yeah.
bringing next meeting?
Yeah.
I guess I'll
bring
get the
that
week
tire from Hawk
after.
Island.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Roll it in.
You're in
All
charge.
about the visual. You get really the effect.
You're in charge of the tire from Hawk Island. Al, get out there, or you have to help her.
Okay.
All right. Who was that? That was John. Now we have, last but certainly not least, Janice.
Figure out what you're bringing next.
I know, I'm thinking.
All right, I'll start, on your consent agenda, you have a resolution certifying the receipt of the audit for the 2023 fiscal year. And part of that process of that resolution is for all of you to sign the affidavit, group affidavit form, basically saying that you have, at the minimum, reviewed the recommendation, comments and recommendations section, and that will go up to the state with the resolution that you'll be passing tonight, certifying the receipt of audit. And since the administrator is here, I will say that we had our audit conference. There were no recommendations or comments. Everyone, all the departments are doing an excellent job with the fiduciary responsibilities. and are meeting all the statutory requirements for the financial functions of the town. So I'll pass these down. If you could sign 2 of them, Township Committee, before you leave tonight, and that way I'll have that to process with the resolution. On to fun stuff. We have some events coming up. This Saturday at the firehouse is the Community Day. Delanco Fire Company and our Recreation Commission will be providing a fun-filled day of activities at the firehouse for all ages, and that is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. this Saturday, Delanco Firehouse. We have the History Board. We'll be hosting a
Open house.
open house. I'm trying to find the date on this. Oh, it's Saturday, October
Third Saturday.
19th, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. I believe that's here. And the next exhibition and display will be our local watermen. Kate, if you'd like to say any more about that?
Actually, the Waterman display has been taken down, and Dottie Robbins Talavera will be having the art of different hands that her father, who was an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Robbins, for many of you from Delanco may remember Dr. Robbins. He made his own, yeah, he did, and it was incredible what this man achieved after this terrible.
So should this flyer be?
Well, when Peter sent that out, he still left my grandfather's picture on it, but
That
it's
is your
really, he said, it's funny, and for the 3 months that he was out here, he didn't send that one out, so he's kind of a little confused. But I did take the Waterman's display down, which was all my grandfather's decoys and things, the collection that I have. But he did put in an email today that Dorothy has approved, and she will be here with her father's. And she has a few books that she wrote, so very interesting. But yeah, the Waterman's display was up for actually 4 months, and that's gone. It's back in my house.
So that other display or that other presentation will be Saturday, October 19th?
Yes.
At 1 p.m. here at the municipal building.
Just while you're talking about that, one of the books she wrote was The Life and Times of a One-Armed Surgeon. I actually
Yes.
purchased that a few years ago, and it's a really interesting read. Just to give her a plug, it's available on Amazon, so check it out if you need a new book for your collection.
And I think one was his memoirs that she had published.
I only got through the first one.
Dr. Robbins' memoirs. He was an incredible man.
And then on Friday, October 25th, from 9 a.m. to 11, that's a.m., not p.m., the flyer is wrong, 2 hours. 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. here at the municipal building, we will be having Paramount Drug coming in to do flu shots. It is for employees as well as open to the public. So anyone that wants to stop by on October 25th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. to get their flu shot, they can do that. It is not a free flu shot clinic. If you have your insurance card, bring that. If not, payment information is on the flyer. So that Friday, October 25th. Next, we have a lot of busy things. The Delanco Women's Civic Club will be hosting the 5K run on Saturday, October 26th. Registration is at 8 a.m. and the race begins at 9 a.m., rain or shine. And I believe that starts at the Gateway Park, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. We have also on Saturday, October 26th, very busy day, we have Trunk or Treat and Movie Night at the Field of Dreams on Creek Road. So 6 to 8 p.m. is the Trunk or Treat event, and 8:15 is the movie. And last activity that I have is Delanco's free, this drive-up rabies clinic, Saturday, November 2nd from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Public Works Garage right next door. And there's more information online about that. So if you, these flyers are available in the lobby. If you do pick up the one about the flu clinic, it is not 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. So they're going to be taken out and corrected. It is 9 a.m. to 11 a.m.
A lot of flu shots.
A lot of flu shots. That's a long time to be open. And then I will turn it over to Bev, who has a report on our shredding event, as well as, and I think I did the flu clinic. We had the shredding event, and Bev has a report.
The free shredding event was held here in the parking lot this past Saturday from 8 to noon. 67 households participated, which is about the same number as in the spring. That it remains consistent, is very popular with the residents. We also disposed of 26 boxes of documents and 2 computer hard drives for the township that were authorized for disposal through the state records management program. So all in all, it's a great way to provide that shredding for our residents while we're doing our normal, twice a year shredding of documents that are no longer needed. So it's good event.
And we had the townwide yard sale this past Saturday because of the rain the previous week. I think there was a lot of activity, as well as the community cleanup day. I know that in between, we had the yard sale, but in between, we were able to get an old TV down to the Public Works garage and an old big battery. So it was busy weekend and a lot more events coming up.
I actually really liked, the yard sale day and community cleanup day, because then what I didn't sell at my yard sale, I just brought right over and threw out. So it kind of just made sense to have it at the same time, so.
You can do that, yes, indeed. So it's something to consider.
Yeah.
And I'm a terrible paper hoarder. I had files at home that I brought down on Saturday. I brought 2 big boxes, and thanks to Jess and Ellen for taking care of the event this weekend. Apparently, I don't need the purchase documents from a car I bought 15 years ago and have got 3 cars since, and just other things like that. So it's a great event to get rid of your old papers from the house.
And it's nice because you don't have to drive all the way out to the county. It's very close, very local. But if you miss the shredding events, we will have another one in the spring, as well as the county also runs shredding events, but you would need to take that out to the Resource Recovery Complex out towards Mansfield Town, Columbus,
Right.
Florence Road. But we'll have another shredding in the spring for our residents.
And I did have a few questions from the public on what the fire department was doing during the yard sale on Burlington Avenue. I actually had some public come up and asking us if that's what we were doing, the hoagie sale. We actually we responded to an incident, and for the public's knowledge, it was the apartment building there. They had one of those hoverboards that runs on a lithium-ion battery, and there was an explosion of the battery that was charging overnight on the 2nd floor apartment in the apartment building. So I was one of the first. I was yard selling, as a matter of fact, on Walnut Street. Right when my pager went off, I literally just drove around the corner, and you could smell it in the air. Just the battery the hoverboard can't be bigger than the size of this, two of these papers next to each other. And just the smell and the amount of smoke that came out of that, we had to have the county hazmat unit come out there to properly dispose of the battery from West Hampton's Fire Department. They're the county hazmat squad. So we were out there for 2.5 hours. I actually had someone come up and ask if we were doing the hoagie sale right there in the middle of the road. And no, that was the week before, but that was the activity and the action that was going on Burlington Avenue for those who were interested. So
All that for a hoverboard.
yeah, and thankfully the occupant was able to get the fire out. But now think of that on a larger scale with these electric vehicles and how much water it takes to put those out. So thankfully you don't have the electric vehicle in your apartment, but be careful for any devices you have charging. Make sure if you feel it getting hot, time to unplug it.
And don't charge it overnight.
Yeah.
Too. They always say that.
And I don't leave the house if I've got something charging.
Yeah.
I always unplug it, run out for an errand or come back.
Good point. Very good. All righty. Where are we? We're at the consent agenda now.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted with a single motion. Any item requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All consent agenda items will be reflected in full in the minutes. Is there anything anyone wants pulled from the consent agenda or have further questions on?
No?
Doing good? All right. Ordinance 2024-24, amending the Township Code at Chapter 123 governing animals, first reading by title only, and set public hearing date for October 21st, 2024 at 7 o'clock p.m. Ordinance 2024-25, authorizing the execution of a pilot agreement with RLS Real Estate of Delanco, New Jersey, Urban Renewal Entity, LLC, first reading by title only, and set public hearing date for October 21st, 2024, 7 o'clock p.m. Resolution 2024-133, resolution certifying the receipt of the audit. Resolution 2024-134, authorizing the disposal of out-of-service office equipment. Resolution 2024-135, authorizing the purchase of a utility terrain vehicle, UTV, for the Delanco Police Department under Educational Services Commission of NJ Purchasing Cooperative Contracts. Is there a resolution number for the payment authorization?
No, that's just
It's just
a
a
part of the
blanket.
consent
Okay.
approvals.
Authorizing the payment of bills that may become due and payable before the October 21st, 2024 Township Committee meeting.
One second, Mayor. Regarding ordinance 24-25, Mr. Heinel, could you just give a brief explanation to the public as to what that is?
So it's literally going to be the next thing I was doing, so thank you for reading my mind.
Sure. This gets back in, again, to the history of 20-plus years ago and putting incentives out for redevelopment of property in Delanco. At that time, a pilot program was instituted that has carried on. As everybody knows, Dietz and Watson burned down. RLS is the front portion of that property now, cold storage. They are doing a second phase. This payment in lieu of taxes is associated with that. There is a master redevelopment agreement that has been in place for several years that affords them a pilot. I will say that there was also language that required a review of updates to values after a certain period of time, which has now kicked in. That is to the municipality's benefit, so the pilot payments are increased, will be at a higher rate than originally anticipated under this phase because of the timing. So it is when redevelopment works well, it is a win-win for the municipality and the redeveloper, and in this case, RLS has been a good corporate citizen. Adding additional ratables and incentives to the township is a positive for the residents and should have minimal impact in terms of what they do out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Can I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Carolyn, second by Kate. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Olet?
Yes.
Ms. Seuss?
Yes.
Mr. Templeton?
Yes.
Mr. Bartlett?
Yes. Approval of the minutes from July 22nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kate, second by Carolyn. Is someone not eligible to vote on these because they were out that night?
I have to abstain. I was
Right,
absent.
Mr.
Okay.
Templeton was absent.
All right. All right, roll call.
Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Olet?
Yes.
Ms. Seuss?
Yes.
Mr. Templeton?
Abstain.
Mr. Bartlett?
Yes, and thanks, Mike, for just bringing that up about unplugging chargers. I just remembered I left the wax candle thing on in my office this afternoon, the little melter. I just texted my wife to shut it off, so that's a good reminder to shut all those things off when you're not home. Shame on me. Correspondence, Janice.
Yes, a couple items. The first one is, we received today, and it was emailed over to you. There will be a Riverline public meeting on Tuesday, October 22nd, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Palmyra Community Center. The meeting will focus on service reliability and public and pedestrian safety. There will be, Senator Singleton will be there, and representatives from New Jersey Transit. And there is a flyer out there, I believe, you can pick that up if anyone's interested in that Riverline public meeting. And we also received today our sub-grantee agreement from the Community Development Block Grant for our next phase of handicap ramp replacement projects, the $75,000. So now that we have received that sub-grantee agreement, we can move forward with the preparation of the specs and getting that out to bid, and so.
Awesome.
Oh,
I
work
just
will be
signed
in
it.
the
It's in your
spring.
box.
And I believe committee has already done the resolution for the engineering, authorizing the engineering for that. And that's all the correspondence that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. All right, meeting is now open to the public for any comments and questions. This is session number 2. If you have any comments or questions, or remember anything from before you didn't ask, feel free to approach the podium, give your name and address for the record. Sir.
Joseph Robinson, representing Henry. Two things. With regard to the pilot agreement, and Mr. Arnold addresses, I understand a number of municipalities are looking to enact a grant program to fire district, school districts, and so the special districts that would apply to the township for funding specific projects. And just throw that out there that perhaps the committee would take that into consideration, that they would share some of that pilot money with some of the districts, school district, fire district.
Yeah, we have shared some of the funds 2 years in a row to the school for some extracurricular activities.
Yeah,
And we did reach out again this year, but didn't hear anything back.
Yeah, we
Correct.
did reach out, so we have done that, Joe.
Great. And lastly, I've known a lot of these, many years, work with these, I've worked in a lot of different towns, and I believe you're committed to the best interest of the citizens here, and the property owners. And I take it genuinely and to heart, but if you say you're willing to do something for us, feel better. So, thank you.
Thank you,
Good.
Joe.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead. Come on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fennell, you
Just-
can whisper if you want. Tell me what is important. And that guy there, if he starts yelling at me, I'll start crying.
Me too.
Thank you all very much, Mr. Fennell, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Yeah, good night. That's nice.
Anyone else? Comments?
I'm not sure.
Ms. Stone.
He just did a mic drop, though.
Good evening, Shanika Stone, 40 Swan Court. I just had one brief announcement, specifically, thank you to the township for the allowance to have a community day. Delanco School Board will be participating. I want to just thank Mr. Jazz for reaching out to set that up. And our next meeting is Wednesday the 16th at 7 p.m. Please don't miss it. We only have a few more months left to figure out quite a few things for the senior moment. And I will definitely follow up with the school board regarding your offer for grant. Thank you so much.
Shamika, were you able to get the flyers over to the township? Perfect. Yes, I saw that. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that.
And we'll see you next week, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you as well, Ms. Schwinline.
Any more members of the public, any comments or questions before we close this session? Seeing none. All right, we'll close this portion of the meeting to the public and go to discussion items. Ordinance to permit certain classes/categories of cannabis uses. We did start talking about this a number of months ago. We wanted to wait till all the committee was finally back from all their summer vacations and everyone else was here, so we could have all of us here for this discussion on this matter. And there was, Doug did, let me try to speak, it's too late. Doug had sent draft ordinances out that had to be June, Doug? Give or take?
It's been a
Yeah.
few months. I
It's
think
been
it
a
was the
while.
beginning
Yeah.
of summer, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be in everyone's packet.
I don't know if it was also included, but there's a June of '23 memo from Taylor Design
Yes.
that was part of that process as well.
And for those who have not been here yet in the audience, Over the last couple of years, we had a subcommittee to review the various classes of cannabis use that the state permitted back in, I'm going to say 2021, February 21, for different types of cannabis licenses, which are the cultivator licenses, manufacturer, wholesale, distributor, retailer, and delivery, as well. I believe there's the testing facility as well. And we had a subcommittee made up of various members of the Township Committee as well as members of the public to review those items and which sort of uses would be best for the township. And we had in here, let me just see here. Yeah, we had classes 2, 3, and 4, subject to the certain conditions in the ordinance, which was the manufacturer, wholesaler, and distributor as conditionally permitted uses in the I-1 light industrial and I-2 general industrial zones. And there was a draft ordinance in here to allow that, and there was a supplement to that ordinance for the, Doug, help me here, the finance side of that, and
Yeah, it's basically the financial structure on taxes that the state permits per use category.
That was,
it's toward the
That
end of
was
the
a-
packet.
that was done in October of 2023, the tax percentage that Doug sent us.
Yeah, the ordinance, that was much later, that was
Yeah,
a few
that
months
was,
ago.
yeah, that was, yeah.
The recommendation.
Yeah,
It's on there.
this is the fee structure here.
There you go. What's before that? There you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, the first step
About
is,
three-quarter of the way.
The first step, yeah.
is to, determine how you want to proceed on this, and then if we are proceeding, then the next step would be to address that.
I thought the subcommittee also recommended testing labs.
You can't regulate testing.
Yeah,
labs.
that's just permitted as a,
It's just, oh, okay.
yeah, that's one thing you can't.
I know it was in the list.
That and the delivery services, you
Right.
can't,
You can't right.
correct. Like the Uber for weed, as some have called it. We decided that having a retailer license would not be appropriate for this town, basically allowing a cannabis store, as there's so many on Route 130. There's one that just opened in downtown Riverside. There really wasn't a good place for it in our town. We only really have one main retail center, the camp meeting grounds, and that's the amount of traffic and whatnot that would not be appropriate for our little town. Yeah, the dispensary, thank you. It's not officially called a weed store. But I guess we go around the no laughing, Lieutenant. I guess let's go across the dais for any comments, questions.
Yeah, I have a list.
All right, check it twice. It's almost that time of year.
I think you should also mention that our planner actually did a great presentation on the ordinance as well as the uses.
Correct.
And maybe we need to bring him back to refresh, especially for the residents maybe who didn't attend. And then the governor signed something just recently that regulated it that I printed out today. So there have been a few changes, but go ahead, Fern. You
Okay.
want to have your question.
So pertaining to the ordinance number 5 for Class 3, cannabis wholesaler, and Class 4 cannabis distributor, to me, they should have their own directives as they have different definitions and functions. Right now, we have for Class 4 cannabis for cannabis 4 cannabis distributor license for a business involved in transporting cannabis plants in bulk from one licensed cultivator to another licensed cultivator. or cannabis items in bulk from any type of licensed cannabis business to another. So they have different functions. We have number 6, the nuisance odors. What's the exact penalties on those? With number 8, with regards to Class 2 cannabis manufacturing only, we have it listed that it shouldn't be located any closer than 250 feet from a residential use or residential district. And
Not be located any closer.
shall be located no closer.
Right.
Correct. In there, I think we should include that it shouldn't be any closer to schools and public parks. Parks and playgrounds are an extension of our residential homes. And the term site meaning property lines versus the building itself. And trying to get clarification on that.
I think Scott clarified that last time he was on.
Yeah, you did, and these wouldn't, they're limited to the industrial zones on Creek and Coopertown, and that would be outside of anything you just mentioned.
Well, in 250 feet from the property line, again, looking at our public parks as being part of residential units. We have Pennington Park, we have the Field of Dreams, and then if you look at, pull those in, that's going to eliminate Creek Road as far as any cannabis being permitted there. Again, developers come in, they want higher density of homes and where are the folks supposed to go and enjoy outside air, and we have parks for that. And so to me, our parks are an extension of our folks or our residential homes. And number 9, with regards to Class 4, again, distributors, because of the transportation of cannabis plants in the bulk and their limited 72 hours of storage, depending on the facility and the operations, they could possibly be moving plants 7 days a week. If you got only 72 hours that you're supposed to have this product there on their site, they've got to move it somewhere. And because of Delanco's uniqueness, we need to consider that these cannabis plants could be delivered to the cannabis distributors and or cannabis manufacturers, not only by trucks, but maybe down the road by freight trains. So we need to keep that in mind. And then I took offense to this, and this is personal, or, in my opinion, as a member of the Delanco Township Committee, in the statement where it says, Township Committee of the Township of Delanco finds the amendments to the code to be the best interest in health, safety, and welfare of residents of the township. I don't see where permitting cannabis Class 2 and Class 4 facilities are in the best interest of our residents. And that's my opinion. In my opinion, it probably have more of a negative effect. When we talk about more traffic coming in off the highway, again, looking at these functions, I think we'd have more, that would have a negative impact on the traffic.
It's really no different than any other business having
No.
traffic. It's not like we're bringing in a retail store. It's just, it would be a facility, just like any other facility would have the normal traffic that would be permitted in an industrial zone.
That may be, but again, my opinion that it would have a negative effect on there. And also have a negative effect on our neighbors, over on Perkins Lane. Again, we need to take those folks into consideration. And the other thing that was not addressed in our ordinance is micro businesses as far as cannabis.
Is Is there any documentation on the state level of complaints in other towns that have had these facilities? I know I personally haven't read anything about any
I haven't seen
smells
anything
or
on
anything.
the CRC's website. They post everything about everything. I haven't seen anything on there.
So what I've seen early on was buildings that were not built for grow and then undertook grow did sometimes result in odor complaints to the surrounding areas. Sitting at the board level in other places, I've sat through more testimony about the improvements on odor control in cannabis than I care to remember. So there's been great strides on that, and there are things that the state does at regulatory level to impose that. We are not proposing, as the recommendation out of the subcommittee and what's before you, does not propose any grow facility. In terms of other uses, I have not heard of any complaints, about uses that are related to the cannabis itself.
Thank you.
Lieutenant,
Yes.
we have surrounding towns that have cannabis, they have retail.
Yes, ma'am.
Riverside, I think, has 2. Edgewater Park, I believe, has 2. Delran, I think, has 2,
Yes,
right
ma'am.
across.
Loren
So-
has a bunch.
They have a
Yeah.
cultivation site as well.
Right, so, as an officer, in dealing with other officers in other communities, have you had any complaints or any issues that have come up with some of these facilities in other communities?
No. We handle everything accordingly. I mean, for the officers on our car stops, obviously, they're looking at, if they're stopping a vehicle for an equipment violation, or if there's an issue with how the vehicle is being operated, and they come upon that vehicle, and now they smell the odor of marijuana emanating from the vehicle. By state law, as long as they're not currently smoking, we can't enforce anything, because it's legal. The difference would be obviously if, for alcohol, that's different. You can't have any alcohol beverages in your vehicle. But we're still looking at sobriety. So yes, you're allowed to smoke, but you could not do it where you're inebriated to the point where you can't functionally operate that vehicle. So that's what we're looking at. But as far as any major problems or issues, no, we haven't. Our neighboring towns that have those facilities, they're being operated in accordance with their own rules and regulations, as well as state. And yeah, we haven't had any issues or concerns, nor have we had to respond to those agents, those facilities, to assist and aid them. I believe both of Edgewater's, they have armed security that are actually on premise. So that actually helps them. They're not being pulled from other calls for service to have to respond there, unless it's absolutely necessary. But no, we haven't had any issues.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
This is New Jersey. We know how many regulations the state has. They have really done their due diligence to make sure this is regulated and monitored, and they have a lot of very strict guidelines. So I don't think we need to overthink this anymore. I just would like to.
Okay, what about the financial picture? We're looking at 1 or 2% of income from these facilities. I know that, or my understanding of the retailers, there's a lot of tax dollars that seem to be going to those towns currently, but I'm sure as competition increases, those dollars are going to be spread across different towns and not be in a central location. But with the wholesale and
Could you repeat
I-
that, because I didn't
Yeah.
It would
understand
go to the
that.
town that they're in.
I understand.
right,
it
so
is.
like Edgewater Park, okay, the dollars that came into them has been substantial, and they've been doing very well with that. But as other towns come on board,
Oh, I see what you're
they're
saying.
going to have less going in there, and it's going to go to Delran or Willingboro or
For district, yeah, but they have retail, they have.
Right, they have
and
retail.
cultivation, yeah.
right.
So the problem in New Jersey right now is there's not enough being produced, supply and demand. There's way more retailers than there is cultivators and people growing this and manufacturing it. So there actually is a need for what we're proposing, obviously not growing it, but it's not like all these facilities are popping up like retail, so you really can't compare. They're not the same. It's
Well,
not
that
the
was my question.
Yeah.
You know, how much revenue is being generated there? And then, again, I look at our small 3-square-mile town, and, you know, you start putting the 250 feet away from residential or from our parks, that narrows down the scope to what warehouses will be available for this type of business. And then the other part is, you know, how much is it going to cost us on the administrative side to do the follow-up to go running after our money? You know, these places deal with cash, they're not dealing with checks, and I'm sure there's
I
a way
think
that
that's a retailer. I can't imagine that a manufacturer or a
cash.
wholesaler, they wouldn't be dealing with cash, and that's a retailer. We're
Okay,
not-
so what about the money coming to the town?
Well,
Well, they would.
there is a
they're-
methodology of reporting for that, and their license, continuation of a license hinges upon that. So if they are not reporting accurately, they're going to lose their license and their business at the state level.
I'm sure they're
So-
audited too.
I think, and I don't think I was here for Scott's, maybe I was, but the way I read that memo is, for a lot of what is proposed under this, you know, we have existing space in town that once it's put to a use, we have no idea whether liquor is being brought in and out in boxes, whether OxyContin is being brought in and out, and I don't mean illegally, I mean legally. The cannabis grow facility, once it leaves a grow facility, the potential for odor drops considerably, and the control over that substance is substantial. By the time it gets to the retail end of it, it's all sealed up and remains under seal through point of purchase. So, you know, I think New Jersey was late enough in the cannabis game to understand from other states' mistakes. And as was pointed out, New Jersey has a propensity to be on the highest end of regulation. So I do think the state has done quite a bit at the CRC level to heavily regulate the actual process on this. The security is substantial, but I think the way I see the approach of the subcommittee and the recommendation is, a lot of what comes in and out of the town, we have no idea what the product is, and if it happens to be a cannabis product, we might benefit from the tax associated with that, and really have no appreciable impact on whether, you know, it's widgets or cannabis coming in and out of the town in those processes. These issues, though, are, you know, I mean, there's no shortage of personal opinion relative to whether this is good in the first place across the board for the state of New Jersey. So, but I think that is the way I read the subcommittee's recommendation, is they tried to pick the areas where there's the least potential for impact on surrounding property owners. And in many cases, it's going to be equal to what may have shipped in or shipped out otherwise.
Thank you, Doug. Mike?
Yeah, I've never been a supporter of this. Mr. Olet highlights many of the issues I have with it. Makes some very good points, and he's done a lot of legwork on the 250-foot radius, and including wanting to add restricting the proximity to parks and so forth. I think that's important. There's nothing worse than being out in the park or actually being at your house and having the stink of a skunk waft over you, and it's the person walking down the sidewalk or driving by that's token something. I just think it's a disgusting business, and I think we're chasing a false idol in the tax revenue. It's an evolving commercial process. There's going to be, some economic Darwinism. Some are going to fail, some are going to survive. There's a lot of big money that's in this industry, if you want to call it that. I look at a lot of the experience of some other states that are a couple years ahead of us, and you see things where the cannabis industry goes back to those respective legislatures and asks for a reduction in the tax percentage that's taken because they can't compete with the illegal market. And I think it's just, I think we're chasing a false, we're chasing the money. And that's what the legislature handed us this. We were given an opt-in or opt-out choice a couple years ago with virtually no regulations on the books from the legislature. And looking at some data on the League of Municipalities website, the Association of New Jersey Communities, about a third of New Jersey municipalities have decided to go forward with it, permitting whatever classes from retail to cultivator or so forth. And interestingly, the overwhelming majority of communities along the Jersey Shore have not allowed any cannabis businesses, warehousing, whatever. And that's an interesting fact there, that most of what's approved is in urbanized areas, but a lot of the Jersey Shore towns chose not to partake in this. So, but I agree with Mr. Ouellette's points on getting a buffer zone around the parks and so forth. And I think it's an unfortunate situation that the legislature has left us with. And I think we can do better. I mean, there's a lot of science data that's coming out. There was a very large article in a national newspaper 3 days ago on what the medical community is seeing on increased use of cannabis amongst young people, mental health issues, psychosis, physical ailments that are coming up, and it's morally bankrupt, this business. And I mean, those are the facts. That's what's going on. So I think we can do other things to make our community attractive to business and make it a community that that's good for families and good for people to raise their families here. So that's my 3 cents.
Thanks, Mike. On the point about chasing the money, I think there's only one real word to that. It's obviously, that's the only reason. Why else would we approve this? It's for the tax revenue, which, I would intend that the tax revenue be split equally with our Board of Ed that needs the tax revenue from something like this. And, there's no other reason we would approve anything like this. Why else would the state come up with this and allow this taxation on these products if it wasn't to incentivize the townships to allow these facilities? Otherwise, we would just say, no. The township opted out of all of this back in 2021 without doing any sort of studies on this. We had a whole subcommittee that reviewed this for over the course of 2 years. So yeah, of course, that's the only reason we would approve this is, for the tax revenue. Otherwise, there is no good reason to do this. And the tax revenue can be substantial. And the state of New Jersey has seen that because that's why they came up with this.
Regarding the shore towns are only really open 3.5 months of the year. They would rather sell the space than develop it and get the revenue that way to residential. And most of them are in a flood zone, so that you don't see a lot of industrial happening down there anyway. So, I mean, if I was on committee down there, I probably would have said no, it just doesn't make sense for that area. We're in a little bit of a different, uniquer situation here, so.
Well, yeah, I have a little, one of Fern's concerns is, you know, the Field of Dreams and the residential section. If we didn't allow anything on Creek Road, the only road available would be Coopertown up to a certain point where there is a house across the street from us.
Yeah.
And some others. So I don't know.
You're
if
limiting it to
that's-
like 5 sites at that point.
Yeah, there's only, yeah, so it's not
Yeah.
like there's a big area in town that this would even be viable. I have mixed feelings about it. I would love to see the extra revenue come in and split it with the school, but I know like distribute, it says there's no tax for distribution, so manufacturers 2%, wholesalers 1%, distributor is no tax. Delivery, no tax. So, yeah, I do,
The distributor usually goes along with one of those other ones.
right,
Yeah.
right, but,
Yeah, and the delivery, we don't regulate at all anyway.
no, exactly,
So they
and
could
that's
be
nothing,
delivering-
and
they
it's
are
just
delivering
like the
right
testing, but you still have to set that out in your ordinance. If you're gonna allow testing, you still have to set that out. I don't know, I have mixed feelings. I'm not ready to vote yes or no at this point. I think, I think I'd like to research it a little more. I know the governor just signed a new bill, actually, 3235, he just signed it, establishes a regulated market for intoxicating hemp products and prohibits the sale of these products by unauthorized sellers and to individuals under 21 years of age. So this is something that's just coming out now. So apparently, it's an issue somewhere in order for him to sign this. So, I don't know.
Does that have anything to do with the cannabis, the CRC?
Well, it came through under cannabis. Yeah, it came through. I just got it today in my email or yesterday.
It's what, HB 3235 or SB? Senate bill or House?
Senate bill.
Senate
Senate
Bill
bill.
3235. I probably filed it under my cannabis file, but it just came through. New Jersey regulation, yeah. It was yesterday or today. So I'm not ready to vote on it. If we're going to take an official vote tonight, or if we're going to try to sum up what we want to put in the ordinance.
Is there anything you'd like to change? Any recommendations?
Well, I kind of agree with just having Coopertown Road and not Creek Road. Coopertown Road could be a little better regulated with the truck traffic. If and when we get our study, which also I realize that it does include other areas in town. It includes the school, includes the bridge. There's a lot of areas that we put on that list for that traffic study, but I don't know, I'm not convinced that it's good for Delanco at this point. Other than the financial part, I like that.
That hemp bill is temporarily banning the selling of hemp products within a cannabis, without a cannabis license. The issue said that there were some retailers using legal loopholes to sell to minors different products that had it in it. So it's compounding that, not so much a distribution issue.
So that had to do with retail. And,
Retail,
that would
yeah.
consider-
Specifically, drinks that contained it, things of that nature. So they were taking these drinks in, knowing that they had the products in them, but they didn't have a license to sell.
Oh, okay.
And it was
Right.
like a very small milligram, but
Right,
still, they
yeah.
didn't have licenses to sell
But the
it.
percentage of it, because it's still in the product, but something where like a CBD store is able to sell certain products, we have one here in town, but 7-Eleven can't sell their products.
Right. I know that when they did the survey, that it was like the percentage was more in favor of this,
70%
70% in favor
in town.
in Delanco. So,
I mean, New Jersey residents, they spoke when they voted. I mean, the issue is the law. So we find ways to make sure that, they are abiding by it. And then if they're not, we handle them accordingly, you know? But it's here, and it doesn't seem to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest to follow up on that is that if there is some discussion about, within distance of parks, when we talk about that in language, it gets to be really difficult to see how that's actually going to play out in terms of what gets taken out as permitted and what gets included. I would want, we've gone this far with Scott's involvement, and I would want that planner input before we say, because it may turn out like, okay, we apply these rules and it sounds good, and you effectively have not really zoned it for almost anywhere in town. So I think that's the kind of thing we gotta really double check with Scott.
And that's what I was
Yeah.
just going to say, spot zoning, but
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, so.
I think when we talked about this previously, we actually can stop zone this stuff.
Well, we can, I think as long as there's a rational basis as we're how we're approaching this. So my point, I guess, is only that when we talk about parks, there's different types of parks in town. How are we going to define that?
Right.
What distance are we going to put from that? And then I think, I've actually seen the planners, when they get the information, they do the circles around the areas and then show you what's left.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of what this is. This is what I put together.
Right.
I don't know if this is this year or last year. It's a map showing, I believe I gave this to everybody last year or
Right,
earlier this
yeah.
year. An overlay showing where it would be outside of 250 foot from residential zones, and I'll hold it up for the public to see. And you have Coopertown Road here, both sides of Coopertown Road, and you have Creek Road running down here with Field of Dreams. And that's really the industrial district, so it's not affecting the residential section of town along the river, along the creek. You have Newton's Landing right here. Is the industrial sections of town.
Well, then we have our neighbors on Perkins Lane.
Right. We also,
Residents.
we took out 250 foot from that as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this map does that.
Well, I guess we're tabling it tonight.
Kick it down the road again.
Okay, what's next?
I think that was all we had on the agenda for this evening.
Is anybody from the public want to comment on that? I'd be interested if
Sure.
anybody wanted to comment
Yeah,
on
I'll open the
that,
meeting to the public for anyone who wants to comment on that.
on the cannabis. Anybody have any comments? I know Heather was on the subcommittee. Matt was on the subcommittee. I was supposed to be, but because there were someone else from the township committee, I had to resign from it. I started it initially, the subcommittee, but.
Come on up.
Does anybody have any comments? Yeah.
Michael Donald, Senator Flanagan. I have to agree with Mr. Tupper. I think we're going after something that down the road's going to bite us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I was on the subcommittee.
Just give your name and address for the record if you could, Heather.
Phillips, 209 Andrews Avenue. I was on the subcommittee, and it's a very difficult decision for me personally. I don't really support any of the cannabis things. I mean, I know it passed in the township, 70% of the people agreed to consume cannabis legally, and that's what they agreed to. I don't know how the community feels as far as having businesses and things in town related to it. You know, 1% and 2%, you're talking about 3% of your tax money. If you're talking $1 million, it's approximately $30,000. So if you split that with a school, that's $15,000. Yes, it's more money than you had before, but you have to look at the whole picture. I mean, and I'm not saying I'm in support or not support. I know we had a lot of presentations, and we asked a lot of really good questions, and some of those things as far as, I'm glad we're really kind of trying to take retail off the table, because I think that was the hardest thing for me personally. And growing it, wasn't really in support of that either. Manufacturing, distribution, again, to that point, which we did have in our meeting, you know, if you're transporting alcohol, liquor in a warehouse, you're not really aware of what's really being transported. They're just doing their jobs. I think environmentally was an issue for us, how if there was growing and things and how that would affect the environment, which we kind of took that off the table. The idea of the traffic and things, and that's related to any warehouse, which we've already kind of talked about earlier tonight. So that's not really a cannabis-directed issue. And the idea that if some operation is operating 24 hours a day, then you have ordinances that would limit the time. So yeah, it's kind of it's not a clear choice. It's not a clear decision about, you really have to kind of, you know, think about long-term impacts. I mean, I see it in other states because right now we can't cross state lines to transport anything. So if you have a glutton, if you end up with excess, you could end up having it in a warehouse and it would just sit there and then it's no good for anybody. So there's a lot of other things in addition to just, well, let's allow it, let's not allow it. And I think we kind of were at that point. I think the presentation that we had, Taylor Design, and we had another company come in, or another town, talk about how they chose what they chose and where they chose. And we asked questions. And so, I mean, it was well thought out about what we voted on and agreed to kind of present to you as a committee, where we felt were the most logical to at least advance or look into more and research, for you to research and feel whether or not we should try to recruit them or you should try to recruit them at the township level. So I'm not really much help at this point, but I'm just kind of rehashing how we kind of came to what we presented to you as a whole committee. It was not unanimous. You know, there were points in different categories that we felt, okay, well, the majority felt that we could pursue that, or the majority felt that, you know, maybe that's not the best place for us to be in right now, or that it didn't really have a fit for our town, like retail, because of the other towns in our area that had that. So I don't think it's a cut and dry, and I think it, you know, some of it is, you know, you're kind of thinking of it personally and reflectively how it may impact the town. Ultimately, we don't have crystal balls and we can't really say. So, you know, that's why we start out maybe with one area and see how that works. And, or you know, that's why we didn't go whole hog and jump in and we didn't allow everything, because you can't take it back once you agree to it. So, you know, I know it seems like we're still talking about this 2 years later, but it doesn't hurt to really become very informed and make a conscious decision. And, you know, hopefully it's something that's for the betterment overall. I mean, is it better to have something in the warehouses as opposed to it being empty? I would say yes. Just depending on what they're doing. If they're running a 24-hour operation, probably not. So, I don't know. So I was on the committee, and I don't know if I made any sense at all.
Well, I think the one thing that I got out of what you were saying was the money, the impact. It's a very small percentage, and
I don't know if
so
that's the other thing. Will you be making $5, $6, $7, $10 million? You know, what really will the impact? You're saying it's 1% for this class or 2% for this class. I mean, that's not.
It's not a lot of money.
I think just from a business sense, financial sense, thank you, Heather, for the comments.
Yes, thank you.
A business isn't going to operate out of one of these warehouses to just make $1 million. That's any of these businesses here. For the amount of rent that they're paying, you're looking tens of millions of dollars of their revenue.
They make $1 million a week.
Yeah, they could make that with their eyes closed. So you're looking substantial.
Yeah.
I think just any sort of business they would never go in here just to make $1 million, and that's a cannabis business or anything else who's going to be renting one of these warehouses, like the warehouse Blue Water just moved into down the road there. I could only imagine, I know what they're asking for that property for the $1 per square, so yeah, they're making money hand over fist. They have to be in order to substantiate a business to pay that rent. So when you take whatever they're storing in that warehouse, which I have no idea what it is, all I know they get stuff shipped in from overseas and they distribute it to Walmart and Target. Whatever that is, who knows? But if you have that amount of warehouse filled with a portion of cannabis, just a little bit even, that's substantial money. That's just me as a businessman knowing business. But that's just my opinion. I'm one of 5. But all right, since I do not believe anybody wants to put a vote on this evening, so we'll continue to discuss this at coming meetings. Is there any other one else in the public who wants to make a comment on this?
No. Oh, public. Sorry,
Public.
yeah, sorry. Half tired.
All right, close that to the public. And is there anything else anyone has for this evening? No? I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Carolyn, and I heard Fern first. So all in favor? Aye.
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 All right, thank you very much for coming out this evening.
Yeah, I have to. All right, I'll do it. Thanks.
What's your name?